I had just set the peach pie on the dining table when Ellie rushed over and grabbed my wrist with trembling fingers. Her eyes, normally soft and full of light, were wide with something raw and urgent. "Grandma, get up. We need to go. Right now." I blinked at her, confused. "Sweetheart, what do you mean?" "The party just..." "Please, just trust me," she whispered, low and trembling. "We have to get out of here. Don't ask why." I looked around the dining room. Guests were laughing, glasses clinking. My son Nathan stood near the fireplace, deep in conversation with his wife, Claire, both of them smiling with that tight, shiny kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Something about the way Claire glanced toward me and quickly looked away, something in her body language made my stomach twist. I didn't protest. After 70 years of life and a dozen family betrayals behind me, I'd learned to listen when instinct, or a granddaughter, spoke. I rose slowly, taking Ellie's arm for balance, and together we walked through the crowd of guests toward the door. No one noticed us leave. Or rather, they acted like they didn't. Not Nathan, not Claire, not a single person in that house looked up as I stepped out into the autumn chill, the laughter echoing behind me like something artificial. Ellie's car was parked down the block. She didn't speak until we'd pulled away, until the house disappeared in the rearview mirror. "Grandma, they were going to do something. I don't know exactly what. But they had papers upstairs. I heard Mom talking on the phone to someone named Angela, some kind of notary. And Dad, he said you'd had enough wine that you'd sign anything without blinking." My throat closed. "I only had one glass," I muttered. "I know," she said softly. "But I also saw Mom refill it 3 times when you weren't looking." I stared out the window. My hands were ice cold in my lap. Ellie drove silently for a while, letting me process. I used to believe Nathan had a good heart. That he was just impulsive. Bad with money. Easily manipulated by his ambitious wife. But not cruel. Certainly not calculated. But the more I thought about the party, the way Claire kept my glass full, the way Nathan insisted I sit in the armchair near the stairs, to rest, how Claire offered to show me the upstairs suite after dessert, the more the pieces started clicking together, fast and ugly. I hadn't always been wealthy. After my husband passed, I had taken over his construction business. I wasn't supposed to last a month in that world. Too soft, the men had said. Too polite. Too old. But I'd survived. I'd built. I'd made that company bigger than he ever dreamed. And I'd saved. I had properties. Stocks. Assets my children never quite understood, but always noticed. And now I realized that tonight, they had planned to take it all. Claire, with her legal background, and Nathan, with his charm and desperation, had set the perfect trap. They'd count on my loyalty, my love, my alcohol-blurred sentimentality. They would have won, if not for Ellie. I turned to look at my granddaughter. "You don't know what you just saved me from." She shrugged, but her jaw tightened. "They scare me, Grandma. The way they talk about money. About you." That hit harder than I expected. We pulled into my driveway, and she walked me to the front porch. I kissed her forehead and squeezed her hand. "Go home, sweetheart. But be careful. Don't tell them anything." "I won't." After she drove off, I sat in the dark living room, still dressed in my birthday cardigan, the one Claire had said looked vintage, like it was a compliment. I made a cup of tea and stared out the window. The moon was full and cold. I thought about the moment my son had first said, "I want to take over the business, Mom. You're getting older." That was 6 months ago. He hadn't asked. He'd insisted. And I'd laughed, gently, saying, "You haven't shown much interest until now." I didn't know that laughter would cost me everything. Now, in the silence of my house, I realized the truth. This wasn't about inheritance. It wasn't about helping the family business. It was about power. And they almost took mine tonight. Almost. But now? Now they'd see exactly who they tried to outsmart. And I wasn't going to play nice anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drifted in and out, my thoughts like an old reel-to-reel projector spinning grainy images in my mind. Claire's artificial smile, Nathan's forced cheer, Ellie's panic. By morning, I was exhausted but clear. I brewed a fresh pot of dark roast and took my mug to the sunroom, where the light fell through the windows in soft, golden rays. I sat in the same wicker chair where I used to rock Nathan to sleep when he was a baby. The irony stung. I reached for the family binder I kept tucked under the cushion, a habit I picked up after my husband passed. Inside were copies of our business licenses, wills, property deeds, bank account numbers, and most importantly, my power of attorney. Still me. Still my name on everything. Thank God. I ran my fingers across the page protectors, the old receipts, the notarized forms. Then I opened my email and scrolled through the message Claire had sent a week ago, birthday party at our place. Just a few family and friends. 5 p.m. sharp. Right. Just a party. But I remembered the guest list. A few familiar faces, yes, but many I didn't recognize. Slick suits. Fast laughs. They weren't neighbors. They were Nathan's network, I suppose. Investors? Lawyers? Or vultures, waiting for the meal to be served. And that tour Claire insisted on giving me, the master suite renovations. I'd always thought it odd they had the money to gut and remodel anything considering Nathan's real estate projects had all gone belly up. He was on his third, last chance, in 5 years. Where did the money come from? And what were they planning upstairs with Angela, the mysterious notary Ellie had overheard Claire mention? My gut told me everything had been timed, get me just tipsy enough, walk me up the stairs, hand me a pen and a smile, and say something like, "It's just a small amendment, Mom. Legal housekeeping." And I would have signed. In my cardigan. In my trust. I took a shaky breath. My mug trembled in my hands, not from age, but from rage. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my autonomy. My identity. And they thought I wouldn't notice. Just like they thought I wouldn't notice the recent accident with my medication, when I found the wrong pills mixed into my vitamin organizer. Claire had brushed it off, saying, maybe the pharmacy made a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was a test. They were waiting to see how long it would take me to become confused enough to lose control over my estate. They underestimated me. They always had. The phone rang. Nathan. I stared at the name on the screen, then let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Claire. They weren't going to wait long. I knew the drill, warm apologies, some excuse about a miscommunication, maybe even an offer to meet again for coffee and clearing the air. They needed me to stay soft. To stay motherly. To stay trusting. I reached for my pen and wrote a name down on my yellow notepad, Sandra Reynolds, estate attorney. I hadn't spoken to Sandra in years, not since she helped me set up my living trust after Harold died. But I remembered her clearly. Sharp. Discreet. Loyal. By noon, I was sitting in her office across a desk covered in legal pads and contracts. Gloria, she said after listening to my story with a furrowed brow. What you're describing is elder financial coercion. And a pretty sophisticated attempt at that. I knew they were bold, I said. I didn't know they were criminals. She tapped a pen against her notepad, then nodded slowly. We'll make adjustments. Immediately. First, we'll update your trust to include specific protective clauses against undue influence. Second, we'll add a safeguard requiring third-party witnesses for any legal amendments. Third, I want you to write a sworn affidavit detailing what you just told me. Will it be enough? I asked. She smiled. You built a construction empire in a man's world, Gloria. This is cleanup. I exhaled. The weight in my chest loosened just slightly. We spent the rest of the afternoon crafting the new documents, recording statements, and scanning copies. I left her office with a flash drive, 3 binders, and a renewed sense of power. And something else I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. That night, I had soup and buttered toast for dinner. Nothing fancy. No catered trays, no imported wine, no golden flatware like Claire had laid out. Just quiet. Clean. Mine. As I rinsed my dish, the doorbell rang. I dried my hands slowly and walked to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw Ellie. Alone. I opened the door. Hi, she whispered. Without a word, I pulled her into a hug. I just needed to make sure you're okay, she said against my shoulder. I am now, I murmured. Thanks to you. She stepped back and looked up at me. Grandma, they think you're still confused. Mom said you'd probably forget the whole thing by morning. I stared at her. Did she really say that? Ellie nodded. But I told her you left because you felt sick. I smiled. Good girl. You're going to fight back, aren't you? I looked her straight in the eye. No, sweetheart. I'm going to win. The next morning, I opened my curtains to find my car leaning awkwardly in the driveway, low to one side like a table with a busted leg. I blinked and stepped closer to the window. Flat tire. No, tires. I hurried outside, still in my robe and slippers. My knees ached from the cold stone walkway, but I crouched anyway, inspecting the front wheel. There it was, a nail lodged deep into the rubber, angled deliberately. I moved to the other side. Same thing. Every tire. Every single one. 4 precision strikes. 4 nails, each driven into the exact sidewall location where they couldn't be repaired, only replaced. I stood slowly, hands trembling, not from age this time, but from fury. I looked down the street. Nothing unusual. Just Mrs. Delaney's cat perched on her porch railing, blinking at me like it knew something. Across the road, garbage bins lined the curb from the early pickup. Still and harmless. But the damage hadn't happened overnight by chance. It was done on purpose. A hit job. I pulled my phone from the pocket of my robe and called Nathan. He answered on the 3rd ring. Mom? His voice was groggy. Everything okay? No, it's not. My tires have all been slashed. 4 of them. Pause. Then, what? You mean this morning? Geez, that's awful. Probably some local kids. Spring break just started. All 4 tires, Nathan, I said flatly. Each one pierced at the same angle. Looks professional. Looks personal. Another pause. Longer. Then came the soft chuckle I recognized from childhood, his tell. The one he used when caught with a broken vase or missing allowance money. Are you accusing me of something, Mom? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I asked, did you see anything suspicious after I left last night? I was busy, Mom, he replied, a little too fast. Talking with people. Saying goodbye. I didn't even know you'd left until Ellie mentioned it later. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't offer to come check the car. He didn't even sound surprised. I ended the call politely. But inside, I was raging. The tow truck arrived 40 minutes later. The driver took one look at the tires and let out a low whistle. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, he said, kneeling to examine the nail punctures. These are roofing nails. Driven in sideways, just enough to cause a slow deflation. I looked away. Can you fix it? Not patchable. You'll need 4 new tires, ma'am. About $900, give or take. I nodded, already knowing the answer. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of reheated coffee and tried to still my racing thoughts. It wasn't just the tires. It was the escalation. This was psychological warfare. First, manipulate the party setting. Then attempt to trap me into signing over control. Now, vandalism? What next? Would they call a doctor and claim I was senile? Would they try to move me into assisted living for my safety? No. Not yet. Because they didn't know what I'd already done. They didn't know I'd spoken to Sandra. They didn't know I'd updated the trust. They didn't know I'd drafted a personal record of everything, the wine refills, the overheard conversation Ellie mentioned, even the peculiar smirk Claire wore when offering me the guest room, in case I felt faint. I'd written it all down. And made copies. I wasn't just documenting for court. I was documenting for legacy. I wanted the world to remember how Gloria Myers went out swinging, not whimpering. Around noon, I got a call from Claire. I let it go to voicemail. 30 minutes later, another call. Nathan this time. Then a text. Hi Mom, just checking on you. Heard about the tire issue. Hope you're okay. Ellie told us you left suddenly last night. We were worried. Worried. Like hell. I could almost hear Claire's voice behind the text, feeding him the script. They were feeling the shift now. They could sense I wasn't playing along. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside to pick up the newspaper and found Mrs. Delaney standing on the sidewalk with her dog, Biscuit. Morning, Gloria, she said casually. I nodded. Morning. I saw someone in your driveway last night, she said, without prompting. About 9:30 p.m. tall. Male. Walked around your car slowly like he was inspecting it. Then crouched down at each tire. I turned to her. Did you recognize him? Oh, I did, she said, pursing her lips. It was Nathan. My breath caught. I didn't want to interfere, she added. But when I saw your car like that this morning, well, I figured you should know. I reached out and took her hand. Thank you. Her expression softened. You've always been good to this neighborhood. You don't deserve what they're trying to do. I nodded, throat tight. She didn't need to say, they. She already knew it wasn't just Nathan. It was them. A partnership. Back inside, I sat again at the kitchen table, where all my wars seemed to begin these days, and opened a fresh notepad. I drew a line down the middle. Left side, what they know. Right side, what they don't. I began to write. They know. I left the party early. Ellie told them I wasn't feeling well. The trust is still under my name, they assume. I haven't made a move yet. They don't know. I've hired a lawyer. I've changed the trust. I've begun documenting. I have allies. I'm done being quiet. And under that list, I wrote 3 words in capital letters. No more mercy. I used to think kindness would protect me. That if I just loved my children hard enough, supported them long enough, believed in them loud enough, they'd never turn on me. I was wrong. Kindness, when given without boundaries, becomes currency. And people like Claire know how to spend it. I was still sipping lukewarm coffee when my phone buzzed with another message from Nathan. Hey Mom. Claire and I want to make things right. Tomorrow's my birthday dinner. Just us, no big crowd. 6 p.m., come? The message made my skin crawl. The switch was too fast. From tire-slashing silence to cheery birthday invites. But the word that stopped me was, just us. They wanted another opportunity. Another setting. Another trap. The audacity would have been laughable, if it weren't so rehearsed. Still, a part of me hesitated. Not because I trusted them. That ship had long sailed. But because I wanted to look them in the eye. I wanted to see what people looked like when they tried to destroy their own mother and failed. I texted back. Of course, dear. I'll be there. 6 sharp. The reply came in under 10 seconds. That's wonderful. Claire's cooking. Ellie will be thrilled. Ellie. That poor girl was trapped between loyalty and survival. She loved her parents, I didn't doubt that, but even she could see what they were becoming. And somehow, she still had enough spine to stand by me. I made a mental note to update my will again soon. The next day, I dressed carefully. Not for them. For me. I chose a deep blue blouse, one Harold had always said brought out my strength. Black slacks, low-heeled shoes, simple pearl earrings. Not overdone. Not underdressed. The kind of outfit you wear when you're about to do battle in someone else's living room. I wrapped a gift for Nathan, one of the few things I had left from his childhood, a small, silver wrench his father had given him the first summer he helped out at the job site. I hadn't planned to give it to him yet. But now? It felt like a parting gesture. Not out of forgiveness. Out of finality. Claire answered the door with a smile that barely cracked the surface of her polished face. Gloria, we're so glad you came. Her tone was perfect. Professional. Practiced. She smelled like rose water and lavender. Poison and honey. I stepped inside. The house had been redecorated again, new rugs, wall sconces, a massive mirror hanging above the fireplace. Beautiful, I murmured, scanning the scene. Everything screamed money. Money they didn't have. Or maybe thought they would, if things had gone according to plan. Nathan appeared in the kitchen doorway, all fake warmth and open arms. Happy you came, Mom. It means a lot. I nodded, handed him the box. He looked surprised. Something from Dad, I said. Back when you were still his little shadow. He unwrapped it carefully, slower than usual. His hands weren't trembling, but they lacked their usual confidence. When he opened the lid and saw the wrench nestled in soft velvet, I saw a flicker of something real in his eyes. Guilt? Maybe. Regret? Unlikely. What a thoughtful gift, Claire chimed from behind him. So, sentimental. Her voice didn't match her expression. I took a seat at the table. Ellie came bounding down the stairs moments later, hugged me tight, and whispered in my ear, I'm glad you came. But be careful. I smiled at her. Always. Dinner was surprisingly quiet. No arguments. No veiled insults. No alcohol, even, just lemonade and sparkling water. I sipped slowly. They were being cautious. They were watching me. Claire served beef tenderloin, garlic potatoes, grilled asparagus. Restaurant quality. She didn't touch her plate much. Nathan made small talk about the housing market. I nodded and let them speak, smiling when appropriate, laughing on cue. But I watched everything. Claire's nails drumming on her wineglass. Nathan's glances toward the staircase. Ellie's leg bouncing nervously under the table. And the stack of folders on the hallway table near the stairs, barely visible behind a vase of lilies. That's where the plan lived. In that stack. Papers waiting for a signature. After dessert, store-bought carrot cake, just like the one from my birthday as a kid, Nathan said. He stood and stretched. Hey, Mom. Want to see the home office? We finally finished the remodel. Claire brightened. We'd love your opinion. You know, from your old project days. There it was. The bait. And God bless Ellie, she saw it too. She stood abruptly, almost knocking her chair over. Grandma's tired. She said so in the car. Didn't you, Grandma? I met her eyes. They were pleading. But calm. I rose slowly. Yes, sweetheart. I think I'll pass on the tour tonight. Long day. Nathan blinked. Claire's smile strained. Oh, she said. Of course. Another time. The mask was cracking. And it would shatter soon. I hugged Ellie tightly and thanked them all for dinner. Nathan walked me to the door. I'm really trying, Mom, he said softly. I want us to be close again. I looked him in the eyes. And yet, you plan to take everything I've built. He froze. I smiled sweetly. I've seen better cons in my day. But this one's impressive. You almost had me. He didn't speak. Claire stood frozen in the hallway, one hand still on the table. I stepped into the cool evening air and pulled the door shut behind me. As I walked down the path toward my car, I felt lighter. Not because anything had been resolved. But because I had all the confirmation I needed. They hadn't given up. And that meant I wouldn't either. Tomorrow, I'd begin phase 1. The next morning, I woke with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years, not since Harold passed, and certainly not since Nathan started treating me like a walking ATM. I poured a strong cup of black coffee, skipped breakfast, and went straight to my study. I had work to do. Not revenge. Reconstruction. You see, the business world had taught me something long ago. You don't win by screaming. You win by documenting. Quietly. Precisely. With facts that speak louder than sentiment. Claire and Nathan had counted on me being emotional. They forgot I'm a builder. And I was about to build a case they couldn't tear down. Step 1 was simple. Data. I pulled out my old filing cabinet and flipped through records like I was looking for nails in a toolbox. Every loan I'd given Nathan over the years, every, just until we closed the house deal, every, this investment's gonna change everything. Tens of thousands. Some documented. Most not. But I remembered every check. I found one from 5 years ago, $25,000 for a boutique apartment complex, in Charlotte. Another, $18,000 for a digital startup, he said would be the next Airbnb. And who could forget the $40,000 he begged for to flip a foreclosed property Claire had inside access to, except it turned out they never bought it. I made copies of the checks, receipts, and email threads I'd managed to save. Every vague promise. Every fake apology. Every lie. Step 2, their network. I made a list of the people who'd invested alongside Nathan because of my reputation. There was Lisa Thomas, who once handed Nathan $20,000 because, if Gloria's son is involved, it must be safe. There was Calvin Brooks, a retired electrician who lost his pension in that crypto fiasco Nathan talked him into. I called Lisa first. She sounded surprised to hear from me, but not unpleasantly so. I told her plainly, I'm compiling documents regarding Nathan's business dealings. There may be legal implications. Would you be willing to review some material? Her pause was brief. Absolutely, she said. He owes me answers. Calvin said something similar, though with more colorful language. They weren't angry at me. They were angry at being used. I promised to mail them packets by Friday. Step 3. Create distance. I emailed my financial advisor and instructed him to place my liquid assets into a new trust account, one with Claire and Nathan explicitly excluded from access or future consideration. I used neutral legal language. Nothing emotional. Just clean breaks. Sandra helped finalize the language for a document that revoked Nathan's power of attorney if anything were to happen to me, and assigned that responsibility to a longtime business associate, Nora Kaplan, someone I trusted with my life. I'd known Nora since we built our first spec home together in 1988. She knew concrete. She knew contracts. She knew crap when she saw it. She'd protect my legacy better than family ever had. By noon, I had 3 manila envelopes on my kitchen counter. Each one addressed to someone who'd been burned by Nathan. Each filled with photocopies of bank statements, investment promises, and canceled checks. On top, I placed a letter that read, "For your consideration, documentation regarding the business conduct of Nathan Myers and Claire Winters. All information is based on verifiable records. Please review and reach your own conclusions. No accusations. No threats. Just facts. Facts are bullets that can't be traced." As I sealed the envelopes and scheduled courier pickups, my phone rang. Claire. I didn't answer. It rang again. Nathan. Then came the text. "Hey Mom. Just wanted to say thanks again for coming last night. Meant a lot. Hope we can talk soon." Translation. We know something's off. You're not playing along. I left the text unread. Let them sit in silence. Let them wonder. Because that's where power lives. At 3 p.m., a courier truck pulled into my driveway. I handed off the 3 packages and stood in the doorway watching the van disappear down the road. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't scared. I was ready. Tonight, 3 people would open those envelopes. Tomorrow, they would call one another. And by Monday, Nathan and Claire would realize the wall of silence around them was collapsing. I poured myself a glass of water and stood in my living room, the same room where Nathan once tried to convince me to just sign here, it's standard language. He had underestimated me. Again. Because here's what Nathan never understood. Builders remember every measurement. Every inch of ground they stood on. Every nail driven in crooked. And I remembered everything. He wanted to rewrite history. I was about to publish the truth. Monday morning came like the rumble before a storm. The phone rang before 8 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again, different number. 3rd time. 4th time. By 8:30, I checked the call log, Lisa. Calvin. Unknown number. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee and carried my mug to the front porch. The air was crisp, the sky clear, but I could feel the pressure building. The kind of tension you sense when a structure's about to collapse. And they knew it, too. I walked back inside and sat at my dining table, facing the window where sunlight streamed across the hardwood floor. The same floor Nathan once helped me sand after Harold passed, back when he still wanted to help, before money became the language of love. Before Claire. At 9:02 a.m., my landline rang again. I picked up this time. "Nora here," came the voice. "You weren't bluffing." I smiled. They never thought I'd fire the first shot. Nora was laughing softly now. Lisa called me. Then Calvin. They're mad, Gloria. Mad and organized. Good. They've started cross-referencing their experiences. Each of them believed they were the only one. That's how predators work, I said. Isolate and convince. Keep everyone thinking it was just bad luck. Well, the illusion's broken. And there's talk of contacting the Ethics Council. I leaned back in my chair. Let it happen. At 11:17, I got the message I had expected, but earlier than I'd hoped. From Claire. We need to talk. Right away. Please call me. Not, how are you, Mom? Not, are you okay? Just damage control. I didn't reply. By noon, a car pulled into my driveway. Claire. Alone. She didn't get out immediately. Just sat there, gripping the wheel. I stood behind the lace curtain and watched her stare at my front door, as if trying to decide whether to knock or bolt. Eventually, she stepped out. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, posture upright, but her hands trembled slightly. She rang the bell once, then again. I opened the door, saying nothing. Gloria, she began. We need to clear the air. Do we? Her smile cracked. There's been a misunderstanding. A big one. And I think if we could just sit down. You mean the party? She blinked. That's part of it. Or the tire slashing? I added evenly. The papers waiting in the guest bedroom? Or maybe the calculated wine pouring? Claire opened her mouth. Closed it. I stepped aside. You have 5 minutes. She perched on the edge of the couch, knees crossed tightly, fingers fidgeting with her necklace. I think Nathan's been under pressure, she began. He wanted your approval so badly. Approval, I repeated. That's what he calls financial manipulation. Her voice got smaller. We've made mistakes. But you pulling other people into this? Lisa called my office. So did Calvin. Someone mailed them files, Gloria. I tilted my head. Did you read them? She froze. I assume you're upset because they're true. Claire stood up now, her composure unraveling. You're blowing this out of proportion. Families fight. They disagree. But what you're doing, is cruel. That word. Cruel, I echoed softly. Cruel is planning to get your mother drunk enough to sign over her business. Cruel is watching her house get sabotaged and staying silent. Cruel is teaching your daughter that betrayal is an acceptable form of ambition. Her lips tightened. You think this is about money? No, I said. You think it's about money? I know it's about control. She stared at me, but I could see the fear now, small and twitching behind her pupils. Where's Nathan? I asked. She didn't answer. Let me guess. Hiding behind you, as always. Claire flinched. Tell him, I said quietly, the next time he sends you to clean up his mess, I won't be answering the door. She turned to go, but paused at the threshold. You're making a mistake, she whispered. I nodded. And so are you, if you think this ends with a conversation. She left without another word. That night, I opened a fresh notebook. Labeled it Phase 2. Inside, I began charting Claire's connections. C. Meredith, Claire's professional name, had built her career on trust. She worked at Fairbridge Financial, managing high-net-worth portfolios. Her clients weren't family. They were judges. City council members. Retired CEOs. And they needed to know who they were trusting. So I drafted a clean, emotionless letter. To whom it may concern. I am writing to provide documentation concerning a pattern of unethical financial behavior by one of your senior associates, Meredith, Claire, Winters. Please find enclosed the following. Evidence of attempted manipulation of an elder's estate. Conflicts of interest involving personal investments and familial influence. Records suggesting coordinated efforts to obtain control over non-consenting assets. These documents are not accusations, but they do warrant investigation. Respectfully. A concerned party. I copied the package 3 times. Included excerpts from my revised trust documents. Photos of the birthday party invitations. Screenshots of text messages. The pattern was there. And patterns don't lie. By Tuesday morning, 3 large envelopes were ready to be mailed, anonymously. Claire had spent the last 5 years crafting an image of composure and credibility. She'd built it carefully. Meticulously. Professionally. But she made one fatal mistake. She picked the wrong matriarch to cross. Tuesday afternoon arrived with the sound of slamming car doors. 2, maybe 3 of them. I watched from behind the curtains again, an old habit now, but useful. Claire's SUV was in my driveway. A second car, Nathan's. And a third, unfamiliar. Possibly a rental. They were together. I felt it before I saw it. The desperation. It hung in the air like rain before a storm. They didn't knock at first. Just stood at the front door, talking in hushed, angry tones. Nathan's hands waved wildly. Claire kept pushing his arm down. She was trying to keep control of the script. Finally, the doorbell rang. 3 sharp buzzes. Calculated. Urgent. I didn't rush. I finished the last sip of my tea, placed the cup gently in the sink, and walked slowly to the door. When I opened it, Nathan pushed past me before I could speak. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" Claire followed, her jaw clenched. The third woman entered last, thin, mid-40s, tight smile, clipboard in hand. "Gloria Myers?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "You are?" "I'm Dr. Yasmin Patel. Claire said you might be open to a cognitive screening today. Just a quick." I held up one hand. "No." Dr. Patel hesitated. "It's standard." "Get out of my house," I said, voice low but firm. Nathan spun. "Mom, please. This is just to..." "To what?" I snapped. "To label me as incompetent? To get a document saying I'm too confused to manage my own affairs?" Silence. Claire's face was unreadable now, but her cheeks flushed. "You came into my home with a doctor without my consent," I said. "On my property. After attempting to trap me with wine and papers. After slashing my tires. After endangering your daughter's trust." Dr. Patel took a half step back. "I wasn't aware of." "I suggest you leave now," I told her. "Before you become part of a legal record." She looked at Claire. "This isn't what you described." Claire said nothing. The doctor left, practically jogging down the driveway. I turned back to Nathan. "You've gone too far." He looked pale. "Mom, I was just trying to..." "No, Nathan. You were trying to erase me." Claire sat down hard on the sofa. "Look," she began, softer now, "this got out of hand. We were trying to secure the business for the future. For Ellie. For yourselves," I cut in. "Don't pretend this was noble." Nathan sat across from me, elbows on his knees. "You don't trust us anymore." "No," I said. "And you gave me reasons not to." His voice cracked now, the calm slipping. I don't understand how it came to this. You started treating me like an asset," I said. "Not a person. You looked at my business, my house, my name, and saw opportunity, not legacy." Claire finally spoke again, voice cold. "And what?" You think you're going to die with it all? Let it rot? I turned to her slowly. No. I plan to pass it on. Just not to you. Nathan's mouth fell open. To who, then? He said, almost whispering. I leaned back in my chair. To someone who hasn't tried to manipulate, sedate, and discredit me. Claire laughed, but it was hollow. You think Ellie's ready for that kind of responsibility? No, I said. But she's honest. And I can teach honesty. I can't teach character to adults who already sold theirs. Nathan stood up suddenly. You've made your choice then. I nodded. Yes. And soon, the people around you will make theirs too. I watched it land. He knew. The envelopes had arrived. People were talking. Claire stood too now. You'll regret this, Gloria. I regret waiting this long, I replied. They left in silence. No threats. No hugs. Just doors closing and tires crunching gravel. That night, Ellie texted me. They're fighting. A lot. I think they know. I replied. Good. Let them talk. But don't say anything. Watch. Learn. Protect yourself. She sent back a heart emoji and a voice note whispering, I love you. I played it twice. Later, I sat down with Sandra, my attorney, over Zoom. We've got enough now, she said. You've built a clear timeline. Every step they've taken. Every warning ignored. Every dollar they've misused. What do we do next? She smiled. We take away the rest of their leverage. The next morning, I filed official paperwork. Removing Nathan as a successor trustee. Disinheriting Claire entirely. Reassigning the family home to Ellie in a special generation skipping trust. Freezing all access to accounts with their names attached. I signed the papers in blue ink, hands steady, gaze forward. As I handed the final copy to Sandra's assistant, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because I'd won. But because I'd remembered who I was. Not just a mother. Not just a widow. A builder. A fighter. A survivor. And this battle was almost over. I didn't hear from Nathan or Claire for 3 days. Not a call. Not a text. Not a knock at my door. And in some ways, that silence weighed more heavily than their noise ever had. For over 30 years, I had built Sunday dinners around that boy. Made him grilled cheese through every phase of adolescence. Bought his suits for his first interviews. Paid off Claire's law school loans without asking for a receipt. And now? He'd vanished into silence the moment control slipped through his fingers. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt grief. Not over the assets they tried to steal, but over the son I clearly never had. I wasn't mourning the betrayal. I was mourning the illusion of love that preceded it. Thursday morning, I took a walk around the neighborhood. It was brisk, almost cold, and the wind carried the scent of mulched leaves and damp sidewalks. Autumn always smelled like change. The same scent had been in the air when Harold died. When I sold my first house. When Ellie took her first steps in my kitchen. Now it smelled like war, but a quiet, decisive war. One I was winning without shouting. Mrs. Delaney was pruning her rose bush as I passed. Morning, Gloria, she said, pulling back her gloves. Heard the news. I raised an eyebrow. Which news? She smiled knowingly. The talk around town. Your Nathan's reputation is unraveling like a Christmas sweater caught on a nail. I let out a short laugh. Was only a matter of time. People feel cheated, she said, a little more serious now. They trusted him because they trusted you. I know. You fixing that too? I'm trying. She nodded and handed me a clipping of one of her roses. Keep fighting, dear. You've got more backbone than the whole county commission combined. I thanked her and tucked the rose into my coat pocket. It was ridiculous, really. All the years I spent telling myself I was just a mother. Turns out, I was the foundation. They just didn't know until they tried to rip me out from under them. That night, I got a call from Ellie. Her voice was low, cautious. Grandma, I think they're planning something. I sat up straighter. Tell me everything. They've been making a lot of phone calls. Whispering when I come into the room. Dad's been in the garage a lot. Claire's talking to someone named Renata, works in probate law. I knew the name. Claire had interned under Renata when she first got her license. She was cutthroat and clever. The kind of woman who didn't care how you won, as long as you won. They're trying to find a crack in the new documents, I said aloud. Exactly. Ellie hesitated. Then, I found papers in Mom's desk. They're trying to contest the trust. Something about diminished capacity. My hands clenched the phone. They weren't backing off. They were doubling down. Even after everything, they still believed they could discredit me. They still thought the world would buy the narrative that I'd gone senile and signed things I didn't understand. I wasn't just a threat to their inheritance. I was an obstacle to their entitlement. And they were building a case. So I decided to build something too. The next morning, I called Sandra and told her everything Ellie had said. She didn't sound surprised. Let them try, she said coolly. We'll preempt them. How? We file a public notice of trust amendment. We get a third-party psychological evaluation now, on our terms. With someone we trust. Not some hired gun they spring on you with a clipboard and a smile. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'll do it. And Gloria, she added, voice softening. This happens more than you'd think. Kids see an aging parent and assume that means easy access. But you're not just defending assets. You're defending dignity. And we're going to do it the right way. I hung up, sat back in my chair, and stared at the ceiling. How had we come to this? My own son. My daughter-in-law, who once baked me a lemon loaf after my surgery. I'd never imagined they'd weaponize the law against me. But then again, I never imagined they'd try to rob me blind either. The psychologist was named Dr. Linda Chin. A calm woman with salt and pepper hair and no tolerance for condescension. She met me at Sandra's office that Friday. We talked for over an hour. About my history, my business, my estate plan. About memory and logic and judgment. She asked me to recount my investment history, so I rattled off 14 names and numbers from memory, plus 3 zip codes of past properties. She raised an eyebrow. Do you use memory exercises? No, I said. Just bills and betrayal. They stick with you. When we were done, she stood and shook my hand. In my professional opinion, you're sharp, rational, and more prepared than most trustees I've met under 50. Good, I replied. Because my son thinks I'm delusional. She smiled. Then he's in for a surprise. By that evening, Sandra had filed a notarized affidavit with the county recorder's office, along with Dr. Chen's report. It was official. I wasn't just lucid. I was legally bulletproof. Let them come. Let them claw and twist and spin. I wasn't going anywhere. And this war? It wasn't just offensive anymore. The final strike came quietly, like all meaningful betrayals. A manila envelope was left on my front porch late Saturday morning. No knock. No bell. Just paper and wind. Inside, a formal petition. Nathan and Claire had filed a motion with the county court to challenge my estate documents on the grounds of undue influence and impaired mental capacity. My hands didn't shake. I'd expected this. But seeing it in print, the words unfit and questionable judgment wrapped around my name, still scraped something raw inside me. They were building a fiction, and this petition was the opening chapter. Claire had always been good at storytelling. But I had the truth. And now, I had proof. Sunday afternoon, Sandra and I met again in her office. She flipped through the petition slowly, a pen resting behind one ear, reading glasses perched low on her nose. "They're banking on exhaustion," she said after the first few pages. "Hoping you'll settle or give up. I'm not built that way." She looked up and smiled. "No, you're not. Can we shut this down fast?" She nodded. "The psychologist's report and your notarized affidavit give us a strong foundation. But I want to go further. I want to embarrass them." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "We file a cross motion, not just denying their claims, but asserting malicious intent. If the court sees this as an abuse of process, we can ask for sanctions. Financial penalties. Public record of misconduct." "Would that impact Claire's job?" Sandra shrugged slightly. "A judge might report it to the bar. Fairbridge Financial might drop her to avoid scandal. Either way, they'll regret this path." I considered that. Not out of revenge. Out of principle. They hadn't just tried to take what was mine. They tried to erase who I was to make it easier. And that deserved consequences. Real ones. On Monday morning, we filed everything. The cross motion. The supporting documents. Dr. Chen's report. A signed affidavit from Ellie, confirming what she'd overheard, the manipulation, the party trap, the plan. We even had a statement from Mrs. Delaney, who'd agreed to testify that she saw Nathan tampering with my tires. The case they built was already a ruin. And still, I felt hollow. It's funny, what war does to you. You don't feel victorious. You just feel tired. Until you remember why you're fighting. Tuesday evening, Ellie called. She was whispering again, but this time, her voice was steadier. "They know. I was in the garden, watering the chrysanthemums." "Know what?" "That you filed back. That you're not rolling over." I smiled. "Good." "Dad punched the fridge," she added. "And Mom's been pacing the kitchen with a legal pad for hours. Sounds like things are blooming over there, too." She chuckled, a small sound, but sincere. "They keep saying you've turned me against them," she added. "That you're using me. Do you believe that?" "No," she said. "I know the truth." "Then they've already lost." That night, I sat at the piano in the den. I hadn't played in years. My fingers were stiff, the notes uncertain. But I found the old rhythm, slowly, quietly. The same tune Harold used to hum when sanding down oak cabinets. The same one Nathan once played with chubby fingers before he gave it up for video games and fast ambition. Music is funny. It doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't plot. It just exists. I let the chords fill the room. Let the dust swirl in the lamplight. And for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something other than anger. Not forgiveness. But grief. Grief for a son who had chosen greed over character. Grief for a family dinner that would never happen again without tension buzzing like static in the room. Grief for the mother I once was, hopeful, open-hearted, blind. She was gone now. And in her place? Someone unbreakable. On Wednesday, Claire showed up alone. Again. No makeup this time. hair tied back, eyes red-rimmed. She looked tired. "I'm not here to argue," she said when I opened the door. "I should hope not." She hesitated on the step, then looked down at her hands. "I lost a major client today. They cited reputational risk. Someone sent them copies of the public filings." "That someone wasn't me," I said. "Doesn't matter," she muttered. "It's out now." I didn't respond. She looked up. "Do you feel good about this?" "No," I said honestly. "But I feel justified." She exhaled sharply, like air escaping a balloon. Then she stepped back. "I loved you, Gloria," she whispered. "I really did." "No," I said. "You needed me." "That's different." She left without another word. I didn't watch her go. Instead, I closed the door and turned off the porch light. The party was over. And for the first time in months, my home felt clean again. The morning after Claire's visit, I made pancakes. From scratch. With buttermilk and cinnamon the way I used to when Nathan was 5 and still believed I could fix anything with breakfast. The kitchen smelled like memory and hope and something else I hadn't felt in weeks, comfort. I plated 3 pancakes, sliced strawberries on top, added a little maple syrup, and sat down at the kitchen table. I ate all 3. Alone. And it was the most peaceful meal I'd had since the party. The house was quieter now. Not just in sound, but in energy. As if the walls themselves had stopped bracing for invasion. I moved through the rooms with a slow kind of satisfaction, checking locks not out of fear, but finality. I opened the closet in the guest room, the one Claire had tried to lead me to that night. Inside was the same lavender suitcase she gave me 2 Christmases ago. Still unopened. Still with the tag. For show. Like most things with her. I carried it to the garage and donated it with the rest of the clutter I no longer needed. One by one, I removed the things that once tied me to illusions, the blanket Nathan never used, the gifts Claire gave that still had tags, the framed photo of our family trip to Maine that I now knew had been financed by one of my secret loans. I replaced that photo with one of Ellie and me in the garden, both of us laughing in the sun. No masks. No motives. Just joy. Later that day, Sandra called. The court reviewed our filings. And? They've scheduled a hearing in 2 weeks, but I'll be surprised if it gets that far. The judge included a line in the clerk's notes, insufficient evidence of incapacity. Defendant appears proactive and legally well advised. I smiled. Translation? Translation, they see through it. Your son and Claire just committed legal suicide in a public record. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. It was almost over. Not just the legal battle, but the emotional trench war I'd been fighting beneath the surface. The pressure of pretending nothing was wrong. The guilt of saying no. The ache of acknowledging that sometimes, love does not return home. That evening, I went into the attic. It had been years. Boxes lined the wall like ghosts, Harold's work boots, Nathan's school papers, my old photo albums. I opened one of the boxes marked letters, and found them, hundreds of handwritten notes between me and Harold. From our first apartment. From deployments. From weekends apart. One read. If they ever try to take from you what you've built, remember who you are. You built this family with your bare hands and soft heart. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you irreplaceable. I cried. For the first time in weeks. Because grief is like construction, it doesn't happen all at once. It comes in phases. It needs a blueprint. And when it's done right, it leaves a foundation stronger than what was there before. The next morning, Ellie showed up unannounced. She brought bagels and chamomile tea. We sat on the porch swing. She didn't speak right away. Just leaned her head on my shoulder. Then she said, "They're trying to act normal again. Like none of this happened. That's what people do when they lose control. They rewrite the story. Dad said you're still family." I exhaled. Family isn't just blood. It's behavior. She pulled something from her tote bag. A drawing. Pencil and ink. It was of me, in the garden, kneeling in the dirt, planting something. My hair in a loose bun, eyes focused, lips pressed into that stubborn line I knew too well from my reflection. "You drew this?" She nodded. "For my final project. It's about legacy." Tears welled again, but this time I didn't apologize for them. "It's beautiful," I said. "You captured everything." "Not everything," she whispered. "I couldn't draw your strength." I squeezed her hand. "You're carrying it now." That evening, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I rewrote my will. Not just the legal trust, but a personal one. A letter. To Ellie. It read, "If you're reading this, I've likely moved on to wherever people like me go. People who fought hard and loved harder, who built things with bare hands and protected them with bare hearts. You've seen the worst in this family. But you also chose truth. That matters. I'm leaving you the house. Not because it's big or beautiful, but because it's the last place in this world where I still feel like myself. Keep the roses trimmed. The soil turned. And never let anyone plant poison where you mean to grow love. You don't have to be like me. You just have to remember I was like you once. With love. Grandma." I signed it with the same pen I'd used to build this entire war. And sealed it with hope. Not vengeance. Hope. The hearing was still a week away, but I could feel it circling, like vultures waiting for the last breath. On Tuesday afternoon, I got a text from Nathan. "Please. One conversation. No lawyers. Just us. You owe me that." I stared at the screen. Owe him? After everything? I didn't respond. He texted again 20 minutes later. "I'm coming over. We need to fix this." And just like that, the tightness in my chest returned. I made a cup of tea I wouldn't drink, turned on every light in the house, and waited. He arrived 20 minutes later. No Claire this time. He looked tired. Not the surface-level exhaustion of a man who stayed up too late, but the kind that comes from watching a life unravel thread by thread. He didn't knock. He opened the door and stepped inside like it was still his house. "I need 5 minutes," he said, voice hollow. "You're already using them." He sat, same chair as always, hands clasped tight. "I didn't want it to be like this," he began. "But you planned it to be," I replied. "You invited me to that party, set up the wine, the papers, the witnesses. It was Claire's idea." I held up a hand. "Don't insult me further. You were in it together." He dropped his eyes. "We were desperate." "No, Nathan. You were entitled." "I thought," he started, then stopped. "I thought I was supposed to take over. You were supposed to earn it." He flinched. Then, softly, "I'm not like Dad." "No," I said. "You're not." He looked up, wounded. But I didn't take it back. I wouldn't coddle him anymore. "I was scared," he said. "About the money. About Ellie going to grad school. About losing everything." Claire pushed, "Yes." But I agreed. I signed the papers. I waited upstairs with the lawyer. I let the silence fill the room. He swallowed. "Can we fix it?" "There's nothing left to fix." His voice cracked. I'm still your son. And I'm still your mother, I said, standing. And I will not spend whatever time I have left pretending that means more than it does. He stood too, eyes welling. I lost you. No, I said. You gave me away. Piece by piece. Lone by lie. Until there was nothing left but the weapon you made out of me. I was wrong. Yes, I said. But this isn't about apologies. This is about consequences. He stared at me, a man finally realizing that there would be no loophole this time. No forgiveness bought with flowers or flattery. I walked him to the door. You can tell the judge anything you want. But I'll have the truth. He stepped out onto the porch. The autumn wind tugged at his jacket. I miss the house, he said. I nodded. Then you should have protected it. I closed the door slowly. Not with anger. But with purpose. That night, Ellie stayed over. We made spaghetti and watched old black and white movies. I told her about the first time I met her grandfather, how he spilled coffee on my blue blouse and offered to pay for dry cleaning with a grin that made it impossible to be angry. She asked me if I ever missed being young. No, I said. I miss being sure. She nodded like she understood, even if she didn't. Then she pulled a small box from her bag. I made you something. Inside was a silver pendant, hand-shaped and forged from clay, coated in enamel. Look closer, she said. Etched into the palm, builder. Protector. Survivor. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something return. Not joy. Not peace. But wholeness. Later, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow circles in the dark. My mind wandered to the hearing. To Nathan. To what he might say in court. To whether he'd deny, deflect, or cry. And then it wandered to Ellie. To the way she drew strength without shouting. The way she listened like it was an act of courage. The future was hers. Not just the house. The garden. The assets. But the story. And she'd earned the right to write it. With ink. Not deception. With care. Not coercion. With love. Not inheritance. I got out of bed and tiptoed to the living room. Lit one candle. Just one. And I wrote a final line in my journal. Tomorrow I will face the ones who tried to erase me. But tonight, I remember who I am. And I sleep without fear. I blew out the flame. And slept. Deeply. Finally. Like someone who'd already won. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor wax. Everything echoed, the clicks of heels, the rustle of jackets, the quiet coughing of strangers waiting for justice in folding chairs. Ellie sat beside me in a dark blue dress, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked every bit the future I was fighting for, calm, alert, unshakable. Nathan and Claire sat at the opposite table. Claire in a blazer too tight, her mouth set in a line that looked more like defense than dignity. Nathan looked smaller than I remembered. It wasn't his body. It was his presence. He no longer carried that false confidence, the smug certainty of a man who believed he could bend a mother's love into a signature. The judge entered. We all stood. And so it began. Sandra led our side. She was poised. Efficient. Deadly in her precision. She submitted the psychological evaluation from Dr. Chen, the notarized trust amendments, my personal affidavits, Ellie's statement, and a timeline so thorough it made Claire's evidence look like the scribbles of a panicked student who hadn't done her homework. Nathan and Claire's attorney, some gray-haired man with a cheap briefcase and expensive watch, stumbled through vague claims. He tried to assert I had been coerced. Sandra asked how, exactly, a 72-year-old woman with a 40-year record of business success, a recent cognitive exam, and a signed, witnessed legal trust had been coerced. By whom, and when? He had no answer. Claire took the stand briefly. She spoke calmly, too calmly. Over-rehearsed. She said she'd always had Gloria's best interest at heart. Then Sandra handed her a printed email. One Claire had forgotten. An exchange between her and Renata, the probate lawyer Ellie had overheard her mention. In it, Claire asked, "What if she's too drunk to read? Can we still get her signature?" Claire's face drained of color. Nathan didn't look at her. The judge cleared his throat and spoke directly to Nathan. "Mr. Myers, you petitioned this court to declare your mother legally compromised. That is a serious accusation. Do you wish to proceed?" Nathan didn't speak. The courtroom was silent. Finally, he shook his head. "No, Your Honor." And with those 4 words, the case collapsed. Outside the courthouse, the sky was overcast. Gray but gentle. Ellie and I walked slowly to the car. She held my arm not because I needed it, but because it steadied us both. We didn't speak for a long time. Just breathed. The way people do when a long, bitter storm has finally passed. Later that week, I walked the garden. The air had shifted. It was lighter somehow. The camellias were starting to bloom again, despite the season. Nathan and Claire hadn't contacted me since the hearing. I didn't expect them to. They'd been stripped of their illusions, and people don't like mirrors that tell the truth. But Ellie bloomed. She moved in the following month, taking the spare bedroom and converting my old study into a small art studio. She watered the plants. She balanced the checkbook. She cooked on Thursdays. And she painted. Oh, how she painted. One afternoon, I found her in the backyard, barefoot, charcoal smeared on her jeans, working on a large canvas propped up between 2 flower pots. It was me. Hands in soil, hair tied back, eyes strong and tired and full of fire. "Is that how you see me?" I asked. "No," she said, smiling. "That's how you taught me to see myself." That night, I wrote a final note to myself. Not for lawyers. Not for court. Just for me. They tried to take everything, my house, my business, my name. They thought age was weakness. But age is armor. And memory is a weapon. And I remember everything. But more importantly, I remember who I am. And now, so will they, I folded the note and tucked it in my jewelry box. Right next to my wedding ring. And the spare key. The following spring, Ellie threw a small party. Not for show. Not for strategy. Just tea and cookies in the garden. Mrs. Delaney came. So did Nora, and Lisa, and Calvin. They brought pie and laughter. No one talked about legal documents or betrayals. We talked about hydrangeas and good coffee and how Ellie was applying to grad school for art therapy. And when the sun set, I stood under the trellis Nathan once helped me build, back when love was still easy, and smiled. Because some things fall apart. But others bloom. Again. And again. And again.